And just for prosperity's sake and the sake of the recording, this is officially like our August special session for executive functioning. So Julie is an expert. She is down in Oregon. And I love this. We had her do this session for us last year. And it's really great in terms of a setup for how to get these skills that some of us may be lacking and understanding just kind of the science and the methodology behind this. And we will be providing resources as well. So I'm here just to answer questions in the chat if anything, if you guys have stuff. And I will also pitch questions over to Julie at the end. So we're going to have her go through all of the things, and I'm just going to hang out and we'll come back at the end for questions. Okay. So all you, Julie.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me again. I'm so excited. This is a lot of fun putting this together. So my name is Julie. I have become the recent new owner of Executive Functioning Success. Our predecessor who created our curriculum, Mary D, has decided to spend time with her grandson. So I have just recently become the new owner in January. So Executive Functioning Success is a neuroscience-based curriculum that takes you through your own brain and your own way of thinking, and then applying neuroscience to that so that you can have the strategies you need to do what needs to be done. Our world is changing, and there are more and more expectations on us every day. And we're finding that many of us need external supports, not because our brain isn't doing well, but because the incoming information is so much. It's more than our brains were designed for. So we use a Seeing My Time curriculum. I'm going to go through some of that with you today, and also the learning behind the science behind executive functions and why are they so big? Why is everyone talking about them? So in 2008, this man, John Medina, I really love his picture. He just looks so happy. He said, academic executive functioning is a better predictor of academic success than anything else. That's big. That was in 2008. And from that, we got a whole bunch of people doing research. Harvard University got involved, and it's become very clear that executive functioning is related to happiness, financial security, well-being. In 1970, the term executive functioning was coined. So it was coined in 1970. In 2008, we started to really research it and find out what it was. And then now in 2025, you can find it everywhere. Everyone wants to know about executive functioning. And it used to be that a smaller percentage of people were experiencing executive functioning deficits. And it seems that that number is growing. And there are a lot of reasons why. A lot of people are doing a lot of research to find out why. My theory is the way the world has changed, and the brain hasn't changed with it. But we'll look more into that. So executive functioning causes a lot of confusion in families and in students and classrooms. The reason is it's very hard to reconcile a student that has the cognitive ability for the content, but doesn't seem to have the ability to do school, such as get started on the homework, or even know what the homework is, or turn the homework in. And so we're seeing a lot of frustration over that issue. But all we need is a little bit of knowledge and tools to be able to support them so that they can be successful and move forward onto college and have a successful first year. So that's what we'll talk about tonight. So first, we're going to define it. What is executive functioning? So executive functioning skills are mostly located in the prefrontal cortex. Okay, this is this part of the brain. And this is your higher thinking. This is the part of the brain that's getting things done. And we have divided those skills into, we have divided that clump there into separate skills. So we're going to look at some of them. The first one we're going to talk about is metacognition. Metacognition is the ability to think about your thinking. In other words, to realize that the choices we make now affect our behavior and that we have a chance to decide in the moment. We can decide to change our behavior, or we can decide to do the same thing over and over again. Metacognition is being aware of the pause and the ability to decide. It's being self-aware. This usually comes in around sixth grade, is sort of one developmental mark. Goal-directed persistence. This is the skill to finish things. Once you start it, you finish it. Right? Some of us like to start something and then we get tired with it and we go and we start something else. And then we go over here and we start something else. Or we aren't exactly done with it, but we never go back and finish it. We get stuck. Flexibility. This refers to cognitive flexibility, which is the brain's ability to adapt. Things don't go exactly the way that you plan, and you have the ability to pivot and change direction. This is also related to the autism brain, in that the autism brain often has very black and white view of the world. It's either black or it's white. There's no gray. In flexibility and adaptability, we kind of live in the gray area. Sustained attention. Every brain is paying attention, even though we think it isn't. It just isn't always paying attention to what we need it to pay attention to. That's the problem. So really, sustained attention is about being able to direct that attention and that focus to where it needs to be. And for some of us, that is very, very hard. The gap between, we can focus very well on things we love to do, and things that seem boring or not important are really hard for us to focus on. And the gap between those is huge. Everyone has a gap. It's always easier to focus on something you're excited about. But some of us have this gap that's this big. And so it takes a lot more energy to direct that focus than others. Now, this can be a total superpower. My son was diagnosed with ADD in fifth grade, and we struggled before I found this program. We struggled and struggled and struggled. And I just didn't understand what he was doing. And to me, it looked like he wasn't trying. So when I got more information and I started to understand, we got some tools. But what I noticed is his ability to attend to something he loves is a superpower. He can go so deep into something that I would never be able to, because my brain just would not sustain attention that long. So a lot of these skills have positives and negatives. Response inhibition. This is our ability to control our behavior. It's like your impulse control. Young children, it's the blurting out. Older, it can be applied to texting, maybe texting something right away that maybe you should have waited to text or post on social media. It is also the ability to work first and play later. So get the work done, the homework done, and then you can have the free time. Okay, working memory, one of my favorite things to talk about. So working memory is like this table that you have in your brain, and that's where you do all the processing, is on the table. And so everybody has a predetermined amount of spaces on that table. Typically in young people, it's about 3 spaces. High school, it's going to be around 5, and mature adults, it's going to be around 5 to 7. But what this means is that is the amount of material I can remember at one time and still work with it. So a way to think about it is, can I add numbers in my head? That requires a lot of working memory. You're holding on to numbers, adding them, remembering that number, then this number. That takes a lot of working memory. Directions. If someone gives you verbal directions, how many can you remember to do? The other thing to think about is working memory is your cognitive bottleneck. Cognitive bottleneck. So in other words, if I have a working memory that only has 2 spaces, then we can think of that as a train track. 2 train tracks coming into the station. They drop off information, and then they get new information and they come back out. Okay. If I have 4 spaces, then I have 4 train tracks coming in to the station, and I'm working 2 times faster than the person who has 2. And it has nothing to do with intelligence. It only has to do with speed, how fast you can do it. So this is one to be conscious of. It's one that neuroscientists are on the fence about whether it can be increased or not, but the easiest one to support by writing things down. And it is also the one that is taxed the most in the digital world. Planning and prioritization. This is the idea that an event is coming up, we know it's coming up, and we take the steps to make sure the event or the task is completed, and we know what to do first, what to do second. Time management. This is the brain's ability to realize the passage of time without a clock or necessarily any tools. It's an internal clock. Some people do not have this. So some people have what we call either time blindness or a floating time brain. And so it is very hard for them to judge time. This is my husband, whom I love dearly and have been married to for a very long time, 30 years. But everything in his world is 20 minutes. Since we got married, I'm going to go to Home Depot. I'm going to be back in 20 minutes. Okay, well, it takes at least 17 minutes to drive to Home Depot. So there's no way you can do that in 20 minutes. And so I thought he was being kind of rude. Like, why are you going to do that? Why are you going to be late to everything? I don't get it. Well, it turns out he truly doesn't know. He'll leave and be gone for an hour and a half, and he will truly think he was only gone for 30 minutes. His brain doesn't do it. It floats in time. So, really important thing to be aware of, especially if you have it, then you have a really hard time understanding that someone doesn't have it. Now, on his behalf, he has controlling emotions, which we're going to talk about, and I don't. So we balance each other out. Organization. This is the ability to find a home for things and then use that home. Right? So things not only have to have a home, but you have to use that consistently. Organization takes energy. Task initiation. This is your brain's ability to get started. That's all it is. Just start something. Super hard for many of us. Task initiation. And then lastly, there's controlling emotions. So this isn't that you don't have emotions or that you're always flat. This is that you are able to understand your emotions and then move through them. They don't stop you in your tracks. You don't start to perseverate over something and then you can't go forward. So this is sort of our baseline, right? These are the skills that we talk about. These are the skills that we define for students. But let's look at these skills in action. So we're going to go the opposite way. If I have a task, what skills do I need? So one of the things we're going to look at is applying to college, right? Applying to college is a huge project. Huge project. And it requires a lot of steps. So one of them is to ask for help if you get stuck, right? And this can be parents and students. It is complicated and there's a lot of pieces moving. And so we need metacognition to realize that we need help. We're not going to do it on our own. We're going to have to gather a lot of documents, maybe financial documents, reference letters. We're going to make sure the applications have everything they need. This requires an enormous amount of organization. We need to be able to tell what we've sent in, what we haven't sent in. And task initiation, we have to go get them, right? Getting documents, like think about taxes, right? Gathering documents is something that we go, oh yeah, taxes are coming, I'll get to it. Taxes are coming, I'll get to it, right? And we're a week before, we're scrambling for all that paperwork that we need to get, right? So starting an organization. You're going to fill out multiple applications. So you have to have time management, planning, and prioritization. Which one goes first? Which one goes second? Am I going to get it all done in time? You got to stick with the application to finish it. When there's a lot of pieces, sometimes we think we finished and we didn't, or we forgot to hit send. So we are going to need goal-directed persistence and sustained attention. Completing the applications on time and to the best of our ability, again, takes time management. And this is the thing that is always interesting to me, is that in high school and college, when we finish an assignment, we have to click submit. Sometimes we don't. So working memory, we have to remember to click submit, that it's not final until we've actually submitted it. Or putting it in the mail, like putting it in the envelope with a stamp is not enough. You have to actually mail it in. All right. So now let's look at the first term of college, right? Because now we've used our executive functioning skills. We have Crystal supporting us. We got into college. Things are great. But what happens the first term? We no longer have some of those supports, right? So if we did not learn to have our own supports and our own tools that work for us, then we might get into trouble. And this looks like you're going to have to move into a new space. You're going to have to do all your tasks. You're going to have to organize. You're going to have to be flexible. You're going to have to uh, keep response inhibition in check, maybe if you have a difficult roommate. Going to class. Now you have to get up and go to class on your own and figure out how long it takes to get to class, because just because you're on campus doesn't mean it doesn't take 15 minutes to walk to the class or find the class. So, time management skills, getting started on homework, task initiation. And the thing in college is that you don't have just homework. You have to study, you have to review, you have to read. It's much more intense than high school. You got to turn in those assignments in, working memory. Again, ask for help when you need it. We can get in a college situation, you can get behind really fast. And once you get behind, it becomes harder and harder to ask for help. So, metacognition. Uh, you're going to have to make progress on multiple assignments simultaneously. The college teachers don't talk to each other. So you might have 3 assignments due the same day and you got to figure it out. So sustained attention, goal-directed persistence, planning and prioritization, metacognition. So we can see how all of these skills are playing into successful life. They are about the doing of life, not about how smart we are. And so it's really important that we have a handle on them and that we have tools. If we aren't able to, if our brain isn't able to do it internally, we need tools to do it externally so that we can be successful. Oh, sorry, response inhibition also. And they all interconnect with each other. They're not standalone skills. They're complicated and they interconnect. So bottom line, what is executive functioning? It is a set of brain skills that get things done. Bottom line. So then let's look at what affects those skills. Why are sometimes they very strong? Why are they not? Why are some people stronger than other people? What affects them? The first thing we have to look at is age. This is a developmental skill that is learned across time. So executive function skills, let's look at 3 of them. In this graph on the here by the 4, we have age. So the age is going across the screen. Immature skills at the bottom, mature skills at the top. Okay. So if we look at inhibitory control, or what we call response inhibition, look at this. It is not, let me see if I can get a pointer up. That might be nice. Right there. It's not until almost 24. That is about 5 to 6 years, depending on the age of your child now, away before it is mature. Doesn't mean that they never have it. No, it just means it's not completely mature like it is in your brain. And also interesting, just for those families that might have youngers, is look at this right here. This is middle school. Our brain is figuring things out, and then see it kind of dips and isn't growing as fast, and then it goes again. This is hormones. This is puberty. So just so you all know, it affects their executive functioning. The next one we're going to talk about is working memory. Working memory, like I said, is our ability to process information and hold on to it to be able to use it. Working memory does not become mature until 24, 25, more like 25. And please ignore the downslide. Okay, we're just going to ignore the downslide. There are things we can do to keep our working memory going. The next one we're going to look at is, I really shouldn't have started this spotter thing. Now I just gonna have Julie Miller everywhere. Go away. All right. Okay, goal setting and problem solving. Okay, this is a combination of skills. This is our ability to be flexible, our ability to use metacognition, our ability to finish, plan, prioritize. All of those together are not totally in place until 26. Okay. Colleges and high schools do not necessarily pay attention to this science. So it is important that we are explicit with our students that these skills grow over time, and until our brain can do it, tools are needed. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. The other thing to think about is those who have been diagnosed with something, mostly ADD, their executive function skills can be 3 to 5 years behind their peers. 3 to 5 years. Now, this doesn't mean that they're an immature person or that they're not smart. It just means those skills take longer to develop. So you want to be aware of that as students head out to college. And are they ready? Okay, so we talked about these skills. And we've said that they develop over time. What else affects them? All of these skills here are located in the prefrontal cortex, like I told you, but I kind of lied because controlling emotions is located in the amygdala, which is at the base of the brain. You have two of them, and it's tucked deep inside. And the way the brain grows is from the back to the front and from the inside out. So this amygdala is a very sort of primitive structure, you can say, but it's one of the first to develop, or the first to develop compared to the rest. And why this is important is that this amygdala, all the information we take in from the world comes in through the brainstem and has to pass through that amygdala. The amygdala is a security guard. So based on that information, it says, yes, you're safe. Information may continue on to the prefrontal cortex, or no, you're not. And then it stops sending information to the prefrontal cortex. It also sends cortisol to the prefrontal cortex. And now your brain is offline. We call it flip your lid. Dan Siegel calls it flip your lid, right? Your prefrontal cortex is not working. The problem is we keep talking. So it looks like it's working, but it isn't. All the logic and the metacognition and the planning and the problem solving, none of that is working when you are flipped. So it's really important that we can recognize being flipped and we can bring it down. One way I bring down my own brain is with a technique we call feeling your feet. I don't know why we call it feeling your feet because feet don't seem to be involved, but let's do it anyway. So you have two systems. One is the parasympathetic and one is the sympathetic. The parasympathetic, if I don't get them backwards, is the one that controls your heart rate, your breathing, your digestion. Okay. In your back, down your spine is your vagus nerve. That has a direct line to your parasympathetic nervous system. If we trigger that vagus nerve, the amygdala will shut down because your brain cannot do both. It cannot rest and digest and fight and flight. It has to choose, and it will choose the rest and digest if we activate that vagus nerve. So this is how I do it. I put my hands behind my back or behind my neck, but I don't push on my neck. And I just bend at my lower back. You can't really see me, but I don't bend at the neck. I bend at the lower back. And I just breathe. In doing that, we have stimulated the vagus nerve and we have told that amygdala, you're fine. The reason the amygdala gets us in trouble is because the amygdala doesn't know the difference between a grizzly bear standing in front of us and forgetting our homework. It's the same to the amygdala. Both say you're in trouble. So this is what we need to remember. We do not have a thinking brain that feels. We have a feeling brain that thinks. The feeling comes first. So we have to be able to notice it and monitor it and move through it in order to do other things. So this is a big impact when we change environments, right? There's a lot going on when we move into college, a lot going on when we start high school. Like these transitions are very emotionally based and a lot of things are happening. So we want to remember to take care of that emotional part of our brain so that we can work on the other stuff. Now, this is the thing. So, because of that emotional connection and because of the way the brain works, executive functions are influenced by all kinds of things: situational stress, increased demands, new challenges, being thirsty or hungry, being tired, depressed, if you have a lot of anxiety. All of those things affect how well your executive functions are going to work, which is why one day our kids show up and they're on it, and the next day they're not. The last thing we need to think about that influences it, so we have age, development, their learned skills, so we need lots of experience and opportunity, and then our emotional health. The last thing is transfer. The brain does not transfer skills easily. Skills have got to be cognitively and consciously transferred, which means I know how to be organized in high school. I know how to get everything done. When I go to college, it doesn't mean those skills will transfer automatically. It's a different environment and the brain learns with context. So this involves a process of remembering what the skills were here and redefining the skills here. So for example, in high school, homework meant an assignment the teacher gave you and you got it done. In college, it's more studying, right? You have to understand the material. You have to engage with material. You have to read the material. You have to do the assignment. You have to go to class. You have to engage with the teachers and the peers. So it's different. So it's okay to talk about that and how do we transfer? It's a great conversation to have with a college student. I remember in math class, you felt you didn't understand the assignments or whatever, and you got help. Who could you ask here? Right? Just kind of trying to help that metacognition. So I'm going to give you an example of transfer. So this is a little game. There are 4 cards in front of you. There are letters or numbers. There's a letter on one side and a number on the other side. Okay. Here's my rule. A card with a vowel must have a odd number on the other side. A card with a vowel or an odd number. A card with a vowel or an odd number must have a vowel or an odd number on the other side. So think for a minute, how many of these cards would you have to turn over in order to make sure that rule was true? So just think about that for a minute. We're going to come back to it, but think about that for a minute and write down your answer. And I don't know is perfectly acceptable. I've done this and I did not know. So, all right, we're going to come back to it in a little bit. Okay, so we just looked at what factors influence executive function: age, wiring, genetics play a part, learning opportunities, and transfer. All affect our executive functioning. So here comes the meaty part. Oh, sorry, let's do a little review. What is executive functioning? A set of brain skills that get things done. How do I support it? This is the meaty part, right? Luckily, you have trillions and trillions of synapses in your brain. This is where the neurons talk to each other, and this is where changes are made and learning happens, is in the synapses. And because of neuroplasticity, your synapses are changing constantly. Every moment of every day, they are changing and updating. And because of that, we can get better at executive functioning skills. So one of the things that we start with at executive functioning success is the idea that things that are out of sight are often out of mind, meaning that the brain does what it sees. If I come home and sit down on my chair and I have my phone right there, I set my phone next to the chair, my brain will pick up the phone. That's my relaxation. If I put my book there and not my phone, my brain will pick up the book. Right? We do what we see, what's in front of us. Now, if they're both there, my response inhibition needs to kick in order for me to get the book. but I can set up the environment so that I see what I need to do. So students have a hard time with this because they see adults using digital tools. The difference between most of us, now I'm getting older, so this is changing, but most of us did not grow up using a digital calendar. And so it is much easier to transfer the skills on paper to digital than it is to start with digital and transfer to paper. And one of those reasons is because digital is out of sight, out of mind. You have to turn that device on and look at what you need rather than having a planner open to what needs to be done. Two different things. So I encourage you to send analog clocks. Get analog clocks for your students. You can use little ones. Let's see if this will show up. Kind of, it's blinking. Little ones, because then it's not a wall statement. It's just a little clock that they can look at. The reason being is the digital clock is a sentence. It is 6:15. The analog clock is a view of the space of time. The green is the past, the blue is the present, and the blue is the future, and the present is right here where they meet. This is different for the brain. It is a visual representation. More of our brain is dedicated to visual processing than anything else. So analog clocks are your number one tool. Also, if we're telling time on our phone, that's the more times that we have to use response inhibition and not open it up. Right? The more we can not do that, the easier it is to avoid. So analog clocks are needed wherever you get lost in time. So just think for a minute, where might you have an analog clock? What kind of analog clock might your student pick out? The next thing that we talk about is future thinking. When I said planning and prioritization, a lot of that is future thinking. That skill depends on future thinking. Typically, middle to high school can think out 5 to 7 days in the future. So when I say your application is due in 3 months, whoop, yep, got it. But it is not inside and they are not remembering it because their brain just doesn't do that future thinking yet. This is one of the big differences in the mature brain and the brain that's developing. Interestingly, adults only go out 3 months usually. But so we need to spend a lot of time on future thinking. So having a year calendar and setting that up with your students at the beginning of the year is a great idea. And you just want to put the really big things, right? Like you want to put the holidays first. Whenever we're doing calendars, put fun in first. The brain likes to have fun and know when it doesn't have to go to school. Right? Look at all this light up. When classes start and when classes end are good to know because the year is short, but the terms are even shorter. So knowing when the term starts and when it ends is important. Knowing when the midterms and the finals are, right? Just the act of filling this out is starting to get it into the brain and start that future planning. Drop dates can be important because that has to do with money. And so we have that year picture, and then they need to have a month picture that is either a whole month at once or 3 months of once that represents the term. And this is not for details necessarily. It is for the big stuff again, holidays, fun. It's also for tracking assignments, right? If we have a big project, we want to mark when it was assigned and when it is due so our brain can see the time in between. This particular calendar can be used for marking homework. And then you cross it off when you're done because that makes your brain feel good because of dopamine. And there's a place for notes. Another view we encourage is this weekly view, especially for the college student. Because like I said, in high school, they go to school and then homework happens after school. In college, all your time is spent doing work, almost, right? The guide that we use to start with is at least 2 to 3 hours for every credit they are taking. 2 to 3 hours. So if I'm taking 12 credits, I need to find at least 24 hours of study time. When they see that on a sheet, it changes what they think about. So this is showing the places that they have to be each week, when the classes are, and the travel time when they need to leave. And then these are chunks of homework, right? When we add these to the schedule, it changes their view of when they can do other things, or can they work? Do they have time to take a job? Right? This view only needs to be done once a term because it's going to change the next term. But having this up keeps their brain thinking about a bigger picture of time than just what I have to do today. And if we don't do it, we got to move it to somewhere else. If I didn't do homework on Monday, or I only did 2 hours, then I better find another 2 hours somewhere else so that I don't get behind. So we know the big picture. We have an idea of projects and the month. Now we know what we have to do for the week and what our time looks like so we can balance it. The last thing they need to keep in sight is tasks. They need to know what they are doing in those homework times. So one way to do tasks is on a dry erase board, right? Super easy. This one's small. It's right on the desk. And each day you can just make sure you're keeping track of what needs to be done that day. Also, when you finish it, you're releasing dopamine. That's a whole nother thing that we could talk about another day. This is an example of tracking homework in a more homework and life in just a different way. So this has the week at the top, the classes across, right? And then remember, I'm talking about how assignments have to be broken up, right? So there's reading by class, and then there's what is due, the assignments. What project steps am I working on? Do I have a group project going on? So what steps of those have to be completed this week? When am I going to study or review so that I get a good grade? And then who do I need to meet with? Do I need to go to office hours? Do I have a group I have to do? Do I have a tutor I want to meet with? Right? So this is a way to organize the tasks that are going to be done during those study times we already outlined. Oh my gosh, why did I do that? So sorry, I hit stop share. I decided to be done, I guess. Hold on, coming back, coming back. Oh, am I screen sharing, Crystal? Can you see it?
You are. We just need to make it bigger. Yeah, play. You're
Oh,
good.
okay. All right.
Oh,
All right. So we did that. We did that. Let's go here. I didn't want to click all those things again. Okay, so we've got what is executive functioning, learned set of skills. What affects it? Age, mental health, experiences, and transfer. How do I support it? With external tools and practice. It takes practice, it takes tools. The things that I have been showing you are just some of the tools that can work with organization and making sure that you are doing what needs to be done and not forgetting things. All humans need strong executive functions for school success and beyond. So we also work with a lot of adults. The things that I have shown you are from our planner. The difference in our planner is that it comes with a course. It comes with a mini course so that you can figure out how to set all of these things up and why you need them. So that's a really important part of what comes with our planner. And I guess I just went to our website. I am so sorry. Close this. Hey now. Okay. It's important to remember that planners are difficult for students because they think they can do it online. They think it's online, so why do I need to look it up? Why do I need to write it down? And the reason is that as your demands get more and more, your working memory doesn't grow, right? So the more things that you have to put on it, the more things you need to write down to remember. And also the process of planning is what's important. It's the process that starts your metacognition and your ability to make choices about your time and thinking about what's important to you. That process is much more important than the actual plan itself. Why does it keep doing that? There. Okay, we're back to our example of transfer, okay, with the AB3. So this example, I'm changing the context, okay? You are a waiter or a bartender. You have to make sure that you don't serve anyone under 21 alcohol. And these are your orders. And on one side is the order and one side is the age. So now how many orders do you have to turn over to make sure you don't serve the wrong thing? What do you got, Crystal?
My brain goes with a hard, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. So everyone think about that, about their answer. And so the interesting thing, the answer is two. You only need to check the beer one because you have to make sure they're under 21. And the 11 one, because that's their age, you want to make sure they didn't order something alcoholic. The Coke, we don't care. Everybody can have it. And the age 31, we don't care. The 31-year-olds can have it.
I get
They
it.
can have whatever they want, right? So if we go back to our other one, um, we go back to the first one. Is it not sharing again? I so need a Zoom class. Okay, it's the same thing. The only thing that we need to look is at the A and the 3, because the A has to have an odd number on the other side, and the 3 is an odd number. It has to have a vowel on the other side. We don't care what the other two are. It's the same skill in different context. And that's what happens to our brain when we change locations or change classes or change teachers. The brain has to think harder about what it's doing. Okay, almost done and ready for questions. Um, so I just want to let you know that we are here to support if you have, is that not sharing? Yeah, I'm getting really tired of this. Okay, here we go. Our company is called Executive Functioning Success. We work with people one-on-one, families, just an instructor and a family. We have group courses available and tools and planners available, and we're here to help. I'm Julie, and my email is julie@efsuccess.info. And I'm going to put that and our website in the chat. You can see the planners on the website as well. And just remember that change happens little by little. And you're going to get there. You and your kiddos are going to get there.
Yeah, so feel free,
Okay.
anybody that has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I think that was really interesting because when you showed the clock, and right, it's been a year since we've done this session. So I feel like I always learn something new every time. And I was like looking at the clock going, now I have trained my brain to say when I'm looking at just a digital version, my brain thinks analog. And I didn't
Oh,
recognize that until you said it, going like, I look at it and I think about it in four quadrants, like how much time do I have left? And like, so that form of my executive functioning just kind of started to build into that, like, hey, now, like, but now it makes sense when you think about how kids are taught time. It's based off of that so that they can understand it from an executive functioning standpoint. We just don't always think about it that way when you're not a teacher or not on the other side of it, right?
right, right.
So,
And it's also provided that they got taught how to read an analog clock. Many schools are not teaching it anymore.
Yeah, then that's just sad. Yeah. Um, how can I encourage my 18-year-old son to give these tools a try? I'm going to say one, watch the session. So this is what I do so I'll show you guys the resources and stuff here, but I will tell you that as a parent, right? Like we joke oftentimes in our industry, the reason why we have jobs is our kids do not like to listen to us. We hire experts in other areas for a reason. So this is like understanding the way this process works, right? This session 100% outlines that. And then I'm going to let Julie answer from the her perspective. How would you convince kids that are hesitant in doing this to give these things a try?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to piggyback on that idea that it's different when it's not a parent, especially for our teens. So my daughter is 21. She's going to be 21, and she's in her second year of college, and she works with an educational therapist. Those are people that do this as well. Educational therapist. The educational therapist is having her do the exact same things that I told her to do, but now they're important. And now she says, oh, yeah, she told me to do this and this and this, so I'm going to do it. And I'm like, yes, as long as somebody gets through to you, good. Um, but as a parent, so it can be very difficult, especially when we get to 18, right? The world tells the 18-year-old he or she is an adult.
Mhm.
Why would I listen to my parents? I am an adult. What they don't understand is the way the brain works is not congruent with the electronic world. And they can't do it without tools. Um, so the way I do it in the course is I have to find something that matters to them. If I tell them to just use a planner and put down their homework, they're not going to care. It has to be something that matters to them that they want to achieve. So, for example, I had one student that was really into rock climbing, but his parents were saying, you can't go rock climbing anymore because you're not getting your homework done. So then the weekly schedule became important to him because we could show when he was going to do his homework and when he could go rock climbing. And so he would get both. But we had to plan it and show them that he would do it. So the best way to encourage them is to find something they care about. And the second way is when they fail, wait a day so that the brain calms down and then ask, what would you do differently next time? Instead of you should do this, what would you do differently? Uh,
I'm curious if they're like thinking about how you were showing the middle school brain and the high school brain, like
yeah,
there are some, I mean, I will say I work with a lot of kids now where executive functioning is a challenge and in different respects because of ADHD or because of lack of just like teaching because of COVID and like not learning skills in a typical environment anymore, like all the reasons, right?
yeah.
But I'm curious, like one question was like if, when would be like a really beneficial time to start like especially if kids are struggling to start incorporating these skills. And if you're a decently strong student, but maybe, and this is where my brain is thinking like, is it likely the transition that is the hardest and from high school to college? Because if they're really good at managing things like, and I hear this all the time from kids, like I'll ask them because we have a calendar, electronic calendar built in to our system. And I go, well, it links to your Apple Calendar or whatever else. So you
Yeah.
can do that and feed that in so you don't always have to log in. You can see the things over here. And then some kids go, I don't have a calendar at all. I just have everything living in my brain. And that, right, metacognition wise, I go, well, that's baffling, especially when I know all of the things it is that you're doing. That's going to be hella hard in life moving forward. And I feel like for those kids, they're kind of at that point where they go, no, I've got it. Right. And it sucks to be like, then at some point it slaps them in the face. Like, so even those that are strong, I go, when would be a good time to really start thinking about or brushing up on these skills? So I guess that was a loaded question, but like
Yeah.
when?
Yeah. So two answers, and it goes along with in the chat where they ask, I have a junior in high school. Should they start to incorporate these tools now?
Hmm.
If your child is struggling without is struggling and not getting things done and dropping things, then yes, we want to add the tools as soon as we can. Like I would say sixth grade. And that has to include brain science because brain science is what hooks them, right? Activities like I did with the transfer, that's what hooks them. So if I had someone that was strong in high school and we're worried about the transition, then we talk explicitly about that. There is a great neuroscientist, his name is, and he's here in Portland. I'm putting him in the chat. Jared Horvath, Global Learning Made Easy. He has a lot of TikToks and YouTubes and stuff out there, and they're great for teaching how the brain works. And so talking about that, this is what happens with transfer. You're going to be transferring skills, right? So let's be open about what might happen and who you might ask for help if the transfer is difficult, as we can expect it to be. And sort of normalizing it for them. If they're already doing well, we don't want to like overload them with stuff. But if they are not, if they are only relying on digital tools, they will fall.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people
Right.
will fall because it's also that idea that you can't go backward. It's a lot harder to go from digital to paper than it is to go from paper to digital. So if digital is working for you, great, but it's when it doesn't work.
Yeah. And I've noticed
And
that when you think about like nowadays versus like even back in my day, right? Like I used a planner and I did do exactly what you talked about. And that makes sense when you logically think about how this is how much time I have and this is how I have to slot it out. And it's so much harder for like I still have parents that are like, no, I love my paper calendar.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and bottom line is I'm not against digital. If it works, great. I am against it as a learning tool. And I think we're losing executive functioning skills because I don't have to do it myself. The computer does it. And now I don't have that skill at all.
Right. We could say the same thing about AI for those that are using it to not have to think, right? It's
Yeah.
not, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. Yeah. And for clients, in terms of referencing too, right? So the executive functioning folder also has stuff on learning differences. So we combine the two just in one folder for ease. The recording will be in this session. And then at the top of, there's lots of other resources in here. This is the link to the planner that she was talking about. So you can get that as well as the course that's attached to it. And then the flyer here at the top does give some highlights in regards to the program and then the opportunity the breakout of how the program works as well as an opportunity from the website to be able to go in and schedule. Do you guys do I saw this group in person as well as online?
Right now, we are having family groups only in person in Portland on Saturdays. We have adult groups online.
Okay, so if it was a college age,
So, yes, a college age student would be great in that course.
got it. Okay, perfect. So there are opportunities then to do one-on-one verse or group if we're in Portland or as college age support, we could look at that. So that would be a great transition opportunity in terms of keeping that resource for future students. And so you are welcome to then save any of those resources that you have in here as well for future opportunity. Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Any other questions that you all have before we let Julie go for this evening? No? Okay. Well, then I will be making this recording available. Julie, I'll send it over to you so you can send it to whoever you wish.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And then I will also share it out on all of our aspects. I'm excited that we're going to do that this year. And people really appreciate the info. And then they have you as a fabulous resource to be able to work with going forward. So it's great.
It's great. Yeah. And if you think of questions, just email me. I'd love to answer them if I can. Thanks for having me, Crystal.
You're welcome. Thank you.